everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Day in the Life. My name's Simon Linstead. I'm the host and founder of the InfoSec Live community, and we are bringing you a very, very special guest today to help you learn more about cybersecurity, more about what's important. Also, we're going to learn about his very exciting past. I'm going to waste no more time bringing him on and introduce Mr. Chip Harris. Chip, please say hello and tell everyone a bit about yourself.
Well, hello. My name is Chip Harris. I am a certified ethical hacker, pen tester, forensic investigator, and auditor. And I also run a red team.
I think the most important question I've got for you, first of all, is why are you wearing a mask, Chip?
Well, I have from Interpol told me about a year ago that I have a capture and kill order on me from a nation state. And that if I ever do podcasts and stuff like that I need to actually, uh, cover up my identity for protecting not only myself but my family. Same thing. I had to like wash all of my social media, my Facebook, clean up my LinkedIn, and make it to where I had to become more anonymous. And they put a NSL, which is a national security letter, on me for any of the operations that I actually work on. So nothing to get the Guy Fawkes mask, but that gets a bad reputation. So I decided to, go with a total blackout, to where you couldn't see my face. And I've got a lot of friends in the community like, you have a panty cut on your face, mate. And I'm like, well, I can still see through it. I can still see the screen, and there's a lot of facial recognition and software out there that you can use nowadays to track and trace people down. So I had to completely redo my entire network to where I actually am hiding behind 7 proxies, to disguise my IP, and from where I work. And I work 100% remote from my home here in my home office. So, it's like, people might know where you live, but they don't know exactly where you are and where you live. So that's been one of the concerns that I had, and I had local law enforcement that I work with and state law enforcement actually come to me and they said, we want you to work on some of our cases as well and testify in court. So I also have to kind of protect my, younger child as well as my wife with their identity as well as my own. Because if you've ever been doxxed before, which I've had people try to dox me before, you want to hide all of that information, as best you possibly can, away from people that could use that against you, to try to do theft, fraud, interdepartmental theft, white collar crime, which is the people that I actually work against, as well as pedophilia, as you call it, or pedophiles that you call in England. I also work on some of those cases as well, pro bono, for some law firms, here locally, with the state and the prosecution as well.
Let's take a step back because firstly, that's the most valid reason I've ever heard for wearing a mask. But we need to delve deeper and find out a bit about Chip and how you've got to the point where you need to be wearing that mask. So a lot of our viewers are either breaking into cybersecurity or looking to raise their game. So could you
Right.
tell us a bit about how you got into the industry, please?
Well, I started off in 1994, to kind of date myself, and I was a bench tech at CompUSA. Most people don't even remember what CompUSA even was, but it was a retailer that actually had break fix capabilities and so forth. And I was a contractor, for them for the Apple contract that they had, because they had a in store within a store before they had the Apple stores. Like the Apple store didn't even exist. So most people don't even remember having to go to a computer store
I do.
to buy a computer. Normally you can just order it online, but you know, this is the pre-internet days. I mean, we were still on dial-up. T1 was a new thing, and a lot of the companies that exist now, like Comcast, AT&T, they were just now getting into the game for providing high-speed internet to your home. So that tells you kind of the date range that we're dealing with here. I decided that I wanted to become a contractor. And this is the year 2000, when I started, really looking to get out of retail and go into contracting.
What
And
what made you what made you go into contracting, Chip? Was there a story behind that?
money. It was simply monetary. I hate to say it that way, but it is.
No.
Because I was making, and just getting out of college too, just graduating college in 2000. It was like, I'm in serious college debt. It's either work this retail job and barely get by, or start, really looking at, furthering my education and going into the market that I want to do. And since I grew up in the IT industry and I grew up in the, intelligence industry, with my father, who was ex-military, and a mother that was ex-military, I was like, that's a very good channel. And within 1 year, when I started really getting certifications and started really learning stuff, I got my A plus, my security plus, network plus, and then I got my first server certification, from Microsoft. And then September 11th happened, and that changed the whole landscape because I had just gotten my Linux plus and my security plus, and I started, looking at, what I need to be able to do to, really break into the industry, in the security world. And at that time, the administration was like, we'll grab anybody we can to throw them into the fight, and that's exactly what I did. I became a private military contractor, got my contracting license, and immediately was, trained, for being an armed military contractor. So I went through training with the company that I was working for, and went through firearms and weapons training. And we got a contract with the 601 Air Cav out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and that's what I was attached to. So these guys were special forces. They are very good operators and professional killers because that's what they do. And I was the guy in the rear with the gear. I was the technology guy. I was helping orchestrate a lot of the information that we were getting from CENTCOM, which orchestrates all of our information in the United States of our theaters of war, and the NSA and the CIA, bringing that information in and then be able to give that to the operatives in the field. And we were also getting trained at that time for counterintelligence, counter surveillance. We were doing everything from real time ethical hacking to spectrum warfare, intercepting phone calls. So there was a lot of, newer technology that was being created, and it was being given to us, to start using that in the field, for, taking down the Taliban and taking on, ISIS, or ISIL, as you want to say it, as well as, a lot of people that were supporting terrorism, which used to be, as we called, mujahideen, from back in the 80s,
Yeah,
that had become the Taliban and so forth. So, we were working exclusively with the CIA, the NSA, the DEA, and the DOJ. And I worked a lot with the DEA, especially over there, because when you're dealing with the Taliban are narco terrorists. So they make their money from selling the derivatives that come from poppy, which is heroin and morphine.
yeah,
So my job was to track down how they launder their money. Where does all their information go? Who's, working with them in the banking system? Where are these shadow accounts come from? They had, had the ability of moving large amounts of, opium into the United States and throughout the world. Well, how do they do that? Well, that's a logistics operation. So you have to really break down where they were, using a lot of that, just like, FedEx, UPS, DHL ships packages. They're shipping large amounts of illicit drugs in and out of the, the country. So that was my job, for the better part of 18 years.
wow. And what made you leave that, or is that a stupid question?
Well, I was, what happened was, I was in field operations, so I was working with special forces, and I got shot twice, stabbed 3 times, and then a convoy that was actually trying to get me out. I got the vehicle I was in got hit with an IED. So it kind of wrecked my body really bad. I ended up having about 7 surgeries, had a lot of metal put through me, and had a lot of metal, after the surgeries put into me.
Yeah,
So I have, I've got a lot of scar tissue, and I finally decided, this is it. I was getting up into my upper 30s, and I decided, I'm going to come back to the United States, do something a little bit, more safer. And just cutting out of, physical therapy, and stuff. And they said, well, you got 2 more years on your contract. And I said, okay, I want to be in the Americas. I'm done with Afghanistan. I made a lot of good money. I've gotten a lot of my bills paid, I mean, I've been saving up for retirement, and eventually, starting a family and so forth. and I, had a really good nest egg. And they said, okay, you're going to do 2 years investigating the Sinaloa and the Juarez drug cartels for the DEA. And I was like, oh,
We've got a
great.
saying, we've got a saying in the UK: out of the frying pan into the fire. I think it is.
Right. So I basically went straight in, I didn't even go into the fire. I mean, I went into the fireplace, so I was thrown directly into the drug war, So it was every 2 days, 3 days, moving from one hotel room to another hotel room because the federal police, are, corrupt, and the local police are corrupt in Mexico. And, we were working with them to find out exactly, how El Chapo at the time
Yeah,
was, moving a lot of these drugs, and, and with his sons and everybody throughout, Mexico, because the rule is the drugs come up to the United States and the guns, and the money comes back down. So that was just, something I learned, day zero when dealing with these guys on how they're moving a lot of this freight into the United States. So out of about 100% of the opioids that are produced in the United States, 80% is consumed by the United States, so, and there's also about 2.5 metric tons, a week of drugs, methamphetamines, marijuana, fentanyl coming into the United States, being distributed through an entire network that you never see, so, they use Google Analytics like any other company. They have data centers and server rooms, and they use spectrum warfare and radios, and they're using counterintelligence, and they're hiring hackers illegally, and they're bringing people like me as contractors, as well as people in to help fight against a lot of the counter surveillance, counterintelligence, and counter warfare that they're actually using in Mexico. So, and I hate to admit it, these drug dealers, and these drug cartels are addicted to murder. I mean, they are addicted. I mean, they pull a full out, Kaiser Soze. They kill everybody. They kill your friends. They burn down your house, shoot your dog. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. People you owe money to. So, you don't really mess with them, because they have no problem depopulating a, square city block full of people and hanging them from a bridge. I mean, so I was kind of like, okay, I'm done. That's it. So in 2015, when I got finished with the contract, I said, that's it. I'm going to move, a little closer to home, which is, not necessarily a secret location, but came back to, to the, rural South, where I grew up, to be a little closer to, my family that's getting a little older. And I said, I can do all this remote. So I started working remote, and I've never looked back, since 2015. So I was doing this before COVID, hit, so I've been doing, remote work as well as travel, because, most times you have to go for a pen test, or you have to go do a presentation to a board, now we're doing all that via remote. I was traveling about 40% a year. Now, because of COVID and travel being locked down, I'm not. So, when I came back, I said there's two industries I really looked at that wanted to help. One being banking, and the other one being healthcare. And that's where I've kind of focused a lot of my skills and stuff out in the industry, because I said they're the two that need the most help. Because everybody's going to steal, or
yeah.
want to steal money, or try to steal money, and everybody's going to get sick. And we at the time in the United States, regulation, deregulation, Obamacare had just come into play. How are we going to protect all this? PHI and EPHI, and new laws were getting passed, and what's regulated now was not regulated later, and how do we get, I mean, there was a whole theme park of security issues that had popped up and is still popping up even to this day, on how we're going to standardize these systems, how we're going to set policies, how we're going to set zero trust, if that's even possible. And also I worked with SCADA-based systems. So there's two lines of demarcation that I have in my career. One is OT operations, operational technology, SCADA-based systems that I had worked with. That's power, electric, water treatment, nuclear, so forth. I've worked with those systems for years and years and years. And then the other side being IT, cybersecurity, counter surveillance, counterintelligence, ethical hacking, pen testing, red teaming, blue teaming, doing the purple teaming, as well as with the C level,
And
helping
but
set budgets.
that's all we ever hear about, Chip, isn't
Yeah,
it? That's all
you
we ever hear
you
about.
hear a lot about the IT side, but you don't hear a
Yeah,
lot about the OT side.
No.
And the OT side is more powerful than IT any day because you can control alt delete a server all day long. But if I right now shut off the entire power to the East Coast for 2 weeks and turn off the internet and turn off power and electric and sewage and water treatment, your three base the running gag and the rule is that you're 3 days away from anarchy. And if you turn off all the lights and all the power on the East Coast right now in the middle of the winter surge that they're having, and they've got a bomb cyclone that's about to hit, and I turn all that off for a week, chaos will ensue like you have never seen. And
Well,
in the United
you see how
States,
bad it is when the Colonial Pipeline happened and you had the
yeah,
run on the petrol stations, on the gas stations. We've had the same here in the UK with Brexit. People queuing
right,
up for half a mile to fill their tanks up when it's just unnecessary. And unfortunately, we are 3 days away from that. The food will
right,
be spoiled. And while I've got you on, let's talk about industrial control
sure,
systems and the security around that, because I never get a chance to speak to anyone about it. And
yeah.
it does have its own challenges with regards to security, doesn't it? So could we talk about the differences perhaps in the challenges for OT versus IT?
So the challenges you have in OT is because a lot of these systems are legacy-based systems that are 100% proprietary around a vendor. Okay, so if you're dealing with ABB, Siemens, General Electric, Schneider Electrical, they all have proprietary-based systems. Some of them are old, real old. I'm talking like Windows XP ass old. You're talking these systems are, for example, I'm going to give a very good example. You have in a hospital an MRI machine, right? It's a proprietary based system based on Windows XP, and it bills about $1 million an hour, to an insurance company, to a hospital. That's $1 million machine. So you basically say to yourself, okay, if I break into this thing and I hack into it, I can irradiate someone and kill them dead within a day. I can irradiate their insides, and cause death and dismemberment, because OT technology is about one single thing and one single thing only:
Yeah,
safety. That's what it's about. In IT security, we deal with how do we protect, how do we zone out, how do we keep thy data, which is thy intellectual property, safe, right? Well, in OT, it's physical safety. How do I physically protect my users? Because I fight for the users. So I'm looking at it from the user standpoint of view. So the user themselves, if this happens and someone gets into this machine, they could turn it off, irradiate someone, cause it to spin up, slow down, do different things. I've been hired by, two different medical companies in the past to hack into insulin pumps and to hack into pacemakers. And I figured a way how they do that through Java and Bluetooth and radio spectrum technology, to where I could speed it up, I could slow it down, I could turn off your heart. Or, same thing with insulin pumps. I could pump too much insulin in you and cause insulin coma and instant death. Or I could just turn it off completely to where you go low and fall out, on the floor. So, this is what you're dealing with when you're dealing with OT technology, not dealing with it in
it's
the
all right
medical
though,
field.
Chip, because Elon Musk is now going to give us a chip that we can stick in the back of our heads, and that'll be fine.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'll totally hack your brain. Why does my left arm automatically start going up? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's Doctor Strange. It's Doctor Strangelove. Yes, my Fuhrer. I mean, Mr. President. You know, I
yeah.
mean, think about it. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing. And I'm not one of these people that has like a bio watch, or a Fitbit. I mean, I'm no, that's just not me. I mean, wearable tech is cool and all, but I don't want anything to integrate with my phone. I use my phone as a phone. I don't use it as a lifestyle device. And we are addicted, I mean, to these things. I mean, this is your new wallet, this is your passport, this is your gal list, this is your life. And I don't really just do that. I mean, I use it as a phone. I don't use it
I read
as.
something today that people value their phones as much as they value their home, on a
Yeah,
survey that was done recently.
absolutely.
And my wife and I were talking about it yesterday. It was inspired by a guy on LinkedIn called Ashley Spite. He doesn't have a mobile phone because he thinks it's ruining society and ruining our ability to communicate. And my wife and I said yesterday, maybe we should leave our phones unless we need them for emergency. So when I'm working, rather than take my phone downstairs when I leave my desk and constantly keep checking it, I might start leaving it up in the office and
Hmm.
actually trying to stay away from it for a bit.
Well, I have a here in the United States, because I have a a young daughter. Me and my wife have instituted the 5 o'clock p.m. policy. Is that we turn off our phones at 5 o'clock. No more phone calls with family, anybody. That's family time. And if you want to text us and everything, that's perfectly fine. We'll get back to you after dinner. After we spend family time together, play on the Switch a little bit.
Yeah,
Help with homework, and then after bath time, that's when, I'll, look at my phone and so forth. We just institute that policy to where we need at least a good 3 to 4 hours just for us,
it's so
and not
important.
our devices and everything. And that's what we've done. It's worked out pretty good so far. And the other thing though too is that I will not let my daughter, who is a tween, she's 9, have a phone. I was like, you're not. She's like, when do I get a phone? I'm like, you're not getting a phone till you are in high school, and that's it. And then it will have bark on it, and I'll be tracking you and I'll be monitoring your phone calls and your
She's
texts and
not going to
everything.
want that phone, is she?
That's right. I mean, look, I'm really good at what I do, and I will know. It might take me a while, but I will know everything that will be on that phone. So don't
Oh,
think
it's
that you're getting
brilliant.
this, free pass to, to everything, because there's been countless studies that we've seen in IT, of how, and especially, because I do have a daughter, we see how bullying, cyber texting has affected,
Yeah.
females, as well as, bulimia and, image, and I call defective image policies, based around like Instagram and so forth, where you need to look and be like a certain type or person. And I'm so against that. Like you wouldn't believe. I was like,
Oh, I'm with
this
you.
is social media is just that. It is not reality. It's not
No,
your life. You live your life. This is a projection of someone else's life, or the
exactly
projection
that.
thereof
And the problem is, Chris, is
advertising.
that people are trying to live that idea of success that other people have got when
Right.
really success isn't that at all, is it? And
No.
let's go
It's
back because I've diverted you off topic. I
yeah, it's
want to
fine.
go back to the industrial control systems and the
Sure.
different threats that you can have. Obviously, there's similar threats as there are on the IT side, but do you see more risk around things like insider threats and shared technologies in OT?
So here in the United States, definitely from England, we do have, domestic terrorism. We have domestic terrorist groups that can act as insider threat, and that we take that very seriously, because in a lot of the briefings that I deal with, with the companies that I've worked for in the past, we look at insider threat and terrorism, coming from inside the United States. Now that's a very, very big thing, because what would be the first thing that they attack? Every single one of them say the same thing. We would attack oil or nuclear or something that's going to affect basically what we're seeing now, within our cyber kill chain, as I say, in a way, is, how we get our goods, how we see our, energy, how does it come in, how's it distributed, and so forth. So if I go up and I blow up, a cogen, or I blow up some cogeneration of power or a substation, that has a trickling effect, across the power grid, in the United States. A very good example of that is we called the Camp Fire that happened last year in the United States. There was a J hook that holded up, a power line that had been there for 30 years. Wind blew just enough to knock it on the ground and spark, and it burned thousands of acres. It killed over 69 people. It burned property, homes, and so forth, and caused, massive amounts, of death and destruction. And all it was a metal hook that held up, a power line that had been there for 30 years. And yes, the power company is now on the hook for paying all those damages, to the insurance companies, and the loss of life of the people that are there. So, it is one of those things. And it also transcends borders, since we know that the Chinese and the Russians have gotten into our OT systems. They understand how our water and power works, and these, systems are, like I said, old. They're proprietary. They're very hard, to upgrade, because it involves a lot of cost. And if you, like, say, for example, want to replace a cogen, which is a cogeneration of power, that's a huge jet engine that plugs into a power plant. Okay, weighs 40 tons. It's not like you can go to Walmart and buy one of those or Target and take it and put it back on the shelf, and keep one in reserve. It takes about a year and a half lead time if it completely breaks down and is destroyed to replace it, for the manufacturer to make it. So it's a hands-off, one-off machine that's a jet engine, and that makes power, and same thing with a water treatment facility. If I hack into the sensors, which are old, that normally are there about 20 to 30 years, I could pour X amount of chlorine or lye into the water and contaminate the water and kill hundreds of people, thousands of people at a time. We've seen this in the United States also last year. Colonial Pipeline, very good example. Um, they didn't get into the pipeline, they got into the financial systems of the pipeline. That fuel travels through that pipeline at 7 miles an hour from each individual coast all the way up the United States. So when they got into those systems, they wanted to go ahead and shut everything off just in case they could get into and pivot north, south, east, west vertically into the system, because it was running Windows XP Service Pack 2. It's that old. So they were like, yeah, we want to turn that off, because the other thing though too was when they got in those financial systems, every state attorneys general that it went through had the ability then to look into their books. So you don't want, state attorney generals work with subpoenas with the FBI and CISA and everybody else, just bust up like gangbusters into your company and say audit. That's the last thing that they ever want to hear. So, that was on the table, and you had FBI and so, and, they had been putting off doing these updates and these patches for years, because a lot of these companies have decided it's easier to pay the fine than it is to do the upgrade. Would I pay $60,000 worth of fines versus paying, $224 million for a full infrastructure project that'll take 5 years? That's what they'll do. They'll literally write it into the budget. I've seen it happen many a time.
I think
So,
with
and they say, oh, well, we're all regulated and we all have to, do all these things for safety and whatnot. No, no, they don't. They'll just pay the fine and pay the lawyers to keep it off at bay before they pay X amount of dollars, from what the bean counters have done, to go in there and fix the entire system. Now, in the United States, unfortunately, it's a knee-jerk reaction in OT. Until somebody gets hurt, they don't do anything, and that's a sad way to put it. But that's been the nature of how the business model works, and that's changing now. Now the government is going to come in and they're going to fine you every month until you get something done.
I think it's the way that risk is looked at is changing,
Right,
isn't it? In
absolutely,
general, because cyber risk, I mean, you take, I don't know, a company like Maersk, who had a cyber attack a few years
right.
back. I had the chap on who was their CISO at the time, a few months back. And the cyber attacks were their number one concern for risk, were they? Oil spills were probably a fairly big one. And
Right.
the problem is, though, that mindset was wrong in a way, perhaps, because it can all relate with that end risk, can't it? That every the way it is now, you have to look at cyber and OT risk and I risk as much as all the other risks you've got to the business, and that's what needs to change. And I think you're right. Now the government are cracking down on it. Hopefully, that will drive the change, because nothing seems to, does it?
Well, the U.S. is now seeing how our supply chain has gotten broken by this. And, when you're looking at the port of LA and you've got 50 container ships that are waiting to come in, that normally it takes about, 50 days to have a container ship coming from China to the port of LA or somewhere like that to be unloaded, whatnot. Now it's 150 days. So because we've got people that are out sick with COVID, or, there's a breakdown in the supply chain for transportation or rail, and that's a big thing we never thought of in those terms. So now we're also looking at it as power, and because there's only 5 power grids in the United States. And I've worked, and I was a lineman. I originally started off running cable, for Tyco Telecom. So, I've worked in a bucket truck. I've run cable. I know what's entailed with it. I've even done ship to shore relays. I've even done, cable that goes on the ocean floor. I worked with, Tyco to run cable from Afghanistan, literally from the ocean floor all the way across the Pacific into, the United States, through,
Well,
and
look,
there's a lot of,
stop on that. Let me stop on that. I did bring a question up, and I'll bring it back, Jess. But you've
sure,
just made me think of something that's at the forefront of my mind at the moment with the potential conflict we've got going on in Europe.
mhm,
Two things concern me. Well, lots of things concern me, but two, with regards to infrastructure, concern me quite a lot because of how vulnerable I think they are. One is the undersea cables, the communication cables we've got
right,
that join up under the North Sea, and the other is satellite communication. And
right.
I dread to think what would happen if either of those got attacked. And
Well, yeah, I
in
mean, you got
reality,
ship
you think
shore,
about all the points of access on that
right.
cable and the satellite system. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the, in because you're an island-based nation, I mean, you're dealing with ship-to-shore relays, you're dealing with a lot of undersea cable, and there's a lot of routers and switches and fiber on that floor that
Yeah,
people don't realize. I mean, you can Google a map of, deep sea internet cables, and it just lights up like a Christmas tree.
yeah.
Same thing when you're dealing with satellite relays, when you're dealing with high-low and halo satellites. You got high and low orbit satellites that deal with your transmission of information and data. And I've been to countries, that are little small island nations no bigger than 3 miles wide that's got a telco room on it. And I was like, so what's in here? And they're like, oh, yeah, this is the communication room for, the East Asia. So, like, if this ever goes away, it takes out all the communication to Japan, China, all of your Philippines, Australia, and New Zealand. And I'm like, oh, that's good to know that it's in here. And it's just a number, island dot, that's out there in the middle of the Pacific. You never even knew it was there. I was like, our ship had to like dock, run cable into it, patch, do its thing, get back on the ship, run cable again. I mean, and you're like, wow, I never knew this was out here. And I mean, this is literally like Castaway. There's
It's
nobody on this
scary.
island except for this room that, is connecting all of the fiber internet connection between one country and lower East Asia and Asia Minor. And I'm like,
Did you ever
holy
see
crap.
the TV series Lost? Was it a bit like that? Because it's
Yeah, it's kind of in that way. You're like, oh, this is interesting. This is kind of creep, And they're like, you can't ever talk about this. You've got to sign all these NDAs and SLAs. And I'm like, I couldn't get out here if I tried, like why? I mean, this is not necessarily what I'd put on one of my vacation spots, and who the hell am I going to tell, but
excuse me.
anyway, it's like, you can't talk about any of this stuff. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I can allude to it, but I can't tell you on a map where it is, even though I kind of know where it is, but I'm not going to tell anybody. And they're
Please
like,
don't tell me.
yeah, they're like, you totally have to make sure, sign your name in triplicate here down this line. And I'm like, okay. But
Wow.
it's the same thing. Is I tell people is if you blew up one of the main communication nodes coming into your country, what do you do? What do you do to communicate? And we're really looking at that now very heavily in the United States because you've got power that's generated on a national level, and then you've got substations that do it at a rural level. Then you do it at a city or state level, and that's done through commerce. So you've got a lot of companies that are selling and reselling energy to subsidiaries. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of layers that go into this on how we're going to institute OT security to where someone doesn't blow up the Colonial Pipeline, or blow up, a water treatment facility, or worse, a nuclear facility, and when you're dealing with, nuclear, it's a whole nother level of nerd. I mean, because you're dealing with a lot of guys, they're dealing with scientific engineering and, engineers, scientists, and so forth. They're not security people. They're not technologists. So if I even said, we're talking about IP routing tables, shoo, I mean, it's just like right over their head. They don't get it. So sometimes I have to kind of mansplain, or bring it down to a level to where it's like a third grader. And I've got to explain, to Joe Beercan, this is how this technology works, and this is how we're going to be able to do that. So as I tell students, a lot is like, you got to have soft skills, you got to have technical skills, you always have got to know your audience, what you're trying to present to and who you're trying to present to, and whether you got certifications or not, it really doesn't matter. They're looking, for you to solve their problem, because if they knew how to do it, they wouldn't need you. That's always been my explanation. So as I tell people, it's like, great, you got all these certifications, you got all this education, whatnot. what hands-on skills do you got? Do you have 3-5 years field experience? And I really look at that a lot. Especially when I'm working with people, it's like, okay, do these C-level people, the CIO, CTO, CFO, do they understand any of the verbiage that we throw out to them to understand? Because they're normally managing either by computer screen or Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So you've really got to know what it is that your audience is, what they're looking for, and what their problem and issue is, and how to break that down. Because sometimes what they tell you, what they think their issue is, really is not the issue at all. Valves and sensors, they only work certain ways. You can either work them in an automated fashion or a manual fashion. There's no gray area. It's either on or off. There's
Yeah.
there's really no in between. On that. So, and those systems are, like I've said, very proprietary. A lot of them are owned by a company. So you've got to really work with them and have a really good vendor relationship, because sometimes they will just not let you arbitrarily go into their systems and start working on stuff.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was waving at Carey. I can't do two things at once. You see, I was reading the chat and listening to you, which is never a good thing. We were talking earlier about the involuntary arm movements. Maybe it was one of those. So
Oh yeah,
I'm conscious we've got about 10 minutes left, and we've got a couple of questions. So I'll
sure.
bring Jess's up first. I think I might know what you're going to answer on this. Does the unwillingness or inability to update the infrastructure ever make it frustrating working in ICSOT?
Oh, absolutely. Because a lot of this is infrastructure is expensive. As I tell people, you never see IT security until something breaks. You know, you never see an ROI, return on investment, until something blows up. And that's always the frustrating thing is like, the feds or the government's only going to give you X amount of dollars to fix X amount of things. So, what is Big Daddy going to dole out money wise for me to go fix? And how am I playing with those numbers to work with the vendors and get this stuff changed out? And where's the greatest need? We don't have, we got a lot of telephone poles, and it's like switching out cable on a lot of telephone poles is very expensive. Running channels and running through states and running fiber and a lot, very expensive. And this stuff costs a lot of money. We in the United States have just passed our first infrastructure bill since God, since World War II.
Yeah.
So we're really about to start investing in fixing bridges and start running more fiber and start getting our infrastructure kind of basically secured. Now, what has basically spawned that? Chaos, as much as I hate to admit it. We've had oil spills, we've had fires, we've had and I hate saying death, dismemberment, and destruction, but that's unfortunately the knee-jerk reaction that we have in OT. It's like we'll keep it running and band-aided all day long, but we can't afford spending $2 million to fix out or change out this system. So we'll keep it running for as long as we possibly can until we're forced to change it. And normally when that happens is when something bad happens. I hate to say it that way.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Next question. We've got Carey in the audience tonight, and I know Carey is looking to pivot into cybersecurity. A lot of people who are watching will be wanting to get into the industry, and everyone's going to want to know what your advice is on that. We touched on it earlier off air, where we were talking about my journey in and the fact that I realized I had to go really back to basics to even think about getting in where I want. So I suppose some honesty from you, Chip, on for someone who's new to the industry, what would your biggest bit of advice be on what to do first?
Well, the first thing is I tell people is like, what do you want to do? Why? I ask this of students a lot, especially when I do talks. I talk to a lot of schools and universities, especially before COVID. I ask them, why are you here? Why do you want to get in IT? Well, I want to get out, I want to make more money, okay, so it's monetary. Next question. I mean, and they don't even I stop them right there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so you're here to learn how to make money. Okay, next person. I'm here to get out of the
There's
situation that
there's
I'm
easier
in.
ways there's easier ways to make money, I
Yeah,
think.
there's easier ways of making money than getting IT. I mean, I could think about 4 off the top of my head. Trust me. I mean, this is, and I tell people, and I go to the next person, I ask them, I say, why are you here? They're like, look, I am poor. I am hungry. I want to learn. I want to get out of the situation I'm in. That's the person that's going to make it in IT. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you got nothing and I give you something, you're never going to lose it ever again. You never lose knowledge. You can lose monetary things. You can lose your home, your house, but you can't lose what's in here. You got to learn it, and technology changes very quickly, and it pivots and it changes very quickly. So the first thing I tell students is, decide what it is that you want to do in IT. Okay. What industry you want to work in? Do you want to work in manufacturing? Do you want to work in SOC, NOC? Do you want to work, like picking a company? Who would you want to go work for? Because if you're going to go work for somebody for 20 to 30 years, you better be damn sure you know exactly what you want to do, in that industry, because once you get in it, it's hard to move or change over to something very quickly. It
I
takes
think
time,
the
and time is always against you.
hard thing from my point of view is understanding what those day jobs are really like, because
Right,
I think my understanding of what a pen tester did and what a pen tester actually does ended up being two completely different things. And you hear about people wanting to be SOC analysts. Then I speak to someone who works in a SOC who's broken in and they've been in there 6 months. It. That's not what they want to be doing every day. And that's what we've been trying to do with getting as many people on here
right.
as we can, is to try and give people more of an idea of what those jobs are. So for me, if you're new to IT and you're pivoting in, no matter what other skill sets you're bringing with you, you're going to have to get that base knowledge up.
Right.
Where would you start for the base knowledge chip?
Well, I mean, it starts off, with your basic A plus, network plus. I mean, start with your CompTIAs, and start with your certifications. And if you have the ability to go to especially with OT, to a vocational school that teaches OT technology, you have won, the day, because in the United States, there's about 5 or 6 schools that actually teach OT technology at a university level. And that's becoming more of a thing now, because guess what? There are people that don't want to be a SOC analyst, that don't want to do red teaming, whatnot. They want to work with industrial control systems. And they're like, how do I get into that? Oh, well, you got to go be a nuclear engineer. No, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to go that, route. There's other routes that you can go into that'll teach you about FERC, NERP, SIP, whatnot, that'll get you into that industry. And the other thing, though, too, is, I mean, this is a blue collar job with a white collar title, as I tell people.
Yeah,
You got to know these systems. You got to physically touch these systems. This is not armchair, armchair security. This is stuff you physically have to go touch, because you're working with a power company, you're working with sewage, you're working with, you've got to physically know how, ABB sensors work. You need to know how, the Siemens electrical stuff works, or the GE electrical stuff works. So there's a lot of different things that you can go into at a university level as well as certification level to be able to do some of these things. And as I always tell people, education is key. Education is key. Educate yourself about the industry, educate yourself about the job, education about the stuff that you want to get into. Because, I mean, I work in 2 industries: the banking industry, and I work in the medical industry, and I love them. I love them. There's so much to do. There's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of stuff I had to learn, about ISO compliances and all this other kind of stuff. But once I really got into it, it became fun. I'm testing medical devices. I'm working with hospitals, working with doctors, working with virologists, people in oncology, all this kind of great stuff. And I really enjoy it, and right now I work with, the NIH and the CDC, and I really enjoy it because, they have a lot of difficulties, but guess what? It's risk and reward. There's a lot of stuff that we have to do, to bring them to a certain level, in our government, to be a certain standard. And it's great working with them, and it's great working with the people that I work with, because they're smart, they're intelligent, we all get along, we all communicate. There's none of that, IT, stab you in the back, one-upmanship, like you see in a cubicle farm, because I'll never work in a cubicle farm. No way, no, no. I'm an IT nightmare. I'm an HR nightmare. So as I tell people, you want me as far away from your users as possible, because if this is the face of your company, you got a problem. Okay, you got a real problem. And I yell, scream, cuss, throw things. So I am not meant to work in, a normal, quote unquote IT environment.
You're not the only one, Chip. You're not the only one. That's
Yeah,
why I'm unemployed, I think, actually. I just
yeah.
quite like my own company.
You
Let's
know, my,
um
my
let's
my
stick
cat
back.
sleeps on my futon. I got a bathroom. I can go smoke in here if I want. I could drink, yell, cuss, throw things, whatnot. And I listen to like heavy metal music, so I'm listening to like Black Sabbath and Norwegian death metal. And it's just really loud. And if you did that in a normal corporate environment, you'd be out the door in like 3 days. I don't think, or even a day. I mean, even so,
That's
as
very,
I tell
very, very
people,
true.
know your niche, know what you want to do, know the certifications that you got to get, know the education that you need to get, and go for it. Because the only person that's going to be able to do it is you, right? No one's going to hold you back. I mean, there's so much out there now. There's your show, there's all these people that are in the industry that you can talk to. There's fucking YouTube. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
the internet. You can research your asshole off about what it is that you want to go do. All right. You
Yeah.
just have to go fucking
And
do it.
there's so much free content out there. It is just it's finding it. But like you say, you
This
just
never
got to look.
existed back in 1996. I mean,
No,
when I started,
it didn't.
I
I
mean,
completely
I'll never
agree.
forget. I mean, it's August the 23rd, 1996 was the first day that I hit the bench. And they said, here's this 5 favorite color iMac, fix it. You know, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have resources, materials. I just had to figure it out. Same thing when I got into network and switching. Here's networking and switching, here's packets and all. I didn't understand any of that. I had to educate myself, right? Because we didn't have CCNAs and CCIEs. That didn't exist. Here's your Linksys router, figure it out. Huh?
On the job training, they call that.
Oh yeah,
On the job training. So look, let's go back to people breaking in because we've got
sure.
the whole OT thing that seems to get missed a little bit. And something that we don't talk about enough is choosing your industry. And you mentioned it earlier. So once you've got your basic or your foundation kind of computer IT learning,
Right.
it is a very good point. Why not then find out what industry it is you want to work with? Because then you can then tailor what you're going to learn after that to fit into that, can't you? Can you think of any examples where there's perhaps relevant qualifications that people could take per industries?
Well, I mean, as I say, it's very specialized depending on what you're looking for. Like healthcare has its own set of rules that you have to follow. Okay, especially here in the United States, you got GDPR. In your country and so forth. We don't have that here. We only have high trust, right? So there's only certain levels that you're able to get to, within cybersecurity at certain levels within healthcare. Okay, banking is the same thing. There's federal, state laws, banking laws, and stuff that's set up that are there to protect that system. The problem is a lot of these systems are very Doric based systems. They're not very adaptive yet. They're getting there. And if you know how to bob and weave through those systems, you can break into a bank ATM, and learn all those things. And as I say, go to the conventions and everything and take a look at like people hacking into cars and voting machines and to, banking devices. The newest thing right now is hacking into petrol or gas pumps to be able to turn them on so people can steal gas. Now, this is not something new. It's just getting more refined. It's getting more better. You know, Same thing with Diebold. Diebold has really done a really good job of changing out a lot of their information on their ATM machines because people were learning how to do truncating and stealing money out of ATM machines, with a USB stick. I mean, very relatively easy. I mean, and it's a lot of these things that you see in the industrial world that are now having to change because the IT world is outpacing them, by at least 3 to 4 to 1, So the technology is way ahead to where the OT technology is now trying to have to catch up, and that's the biggest gap. As I tell people, is like, you need to really learn in your industry where the gaps are and then where you're able to come in and be that niche to kind of fill it in.
And I think you mentioned earlier the fact that the infrastructure bill, for the first time since World War II, I mean, that means money, doesn't it? No,
Yes.
no two ways about it. So surely that's a huge opportunity for people to start focusing on to
Oh,
come in.
that's the thing is we scream and yell about we need IT people and resources and we need people that are ethical hackers and pen testers and can do all this kind of stuff. We need network engineers. Well, you people have it in the thousands, to where you can grab from that pool. Okay. In OT security, it's only in the hundreds that we can grab from. Okay. And their price tags are 3 times more than what it is in IT. So you can make a really good living doing this, cybersecurity and OT, because there's a very limited amount, but there's, like risk reward, a high level of education and hands on that you have to be able to have to break into this industry. Now, I'm going to tell that to anybody. I don't care who you are. It takes 3 to 5 years to break into really IT security where you're really think you know what you know to get to that point to where you're making that salary that you want. Okay. If you come out of a preparatory school or you come out of a college or a university, you're going to be making, 70, 80,000, a year if you're really good. You're not going to make 6 figures walking straight out. You're not. And if you do walk into a CTO or CIO position, you're basically a patsy. You're the one that's going to be
You're the fall
filleted.
guy. Yeah.
You're the one to be the fall guy. Your head's going to be on a pike, or a stick when things go sideways because you're not going to know what to do in that position, and you have to have a minimum 3 to 5 years to walk into something like that. And as I tell my students, because I also teach, is that, it's you versus me. And I'm going to win every time because I got the experience, I've got the hands on, I've done all this stuff. You have not, you don't know the language, you don't know the speak, and and you're going to come in and you're going to try to get this contract, and you're going to fail. But you know what? You learn from failure. You learn where your gaps and your holes are. And as I tell people, I don't work for a living. I have a blast at what I do. I love what I do. Why? Because my dad hated his job for 30 years and told me when I was 15 years old, son, you better get a job that you like because if you're going to be doing it forever, you better like it and enjoy it. Because look at me. The only reason I work here is for retirement. And I didn't want that. I
Right.
wanted to travel. I wanted to go places. I wanted to have fun. Now, I got hurt in the process and I learned a lot about what, my skills are and I learned about what I can and can't do. And then I also learned what my thresholds are, and now that, I have a different life and a different mode and getting a little older, a little grayer, a little softer in the head, some of the gray matter is now gone away. I tell people, I've had a blast doing what I do because I really enjoy learning, and the education that goes with it. I love the hands-on. I love the technology. I love the people I work with. I like the salary. It could always be more, but it's a very good living. And I really enjoy doing the stuff that I'm doing with you now to get people interested in this because
Yeah.
guess what? There's a huge need, for OT cybersecurity, a huge need. And when these people come to kill us, they're going to turn off the water and the power, And I look at Texas, from last year, 200 people died when they lost the power in Texas. That's very traumatic. And was it preventable? Absolutely, absolutely. Could it have been fixed? Absolutely. And I still don't think that the people that did the right thing, that kept the power on and kept their houses warm, I don't think they should be getting $1,500 electric bills because they're prorated energy to their house. That's
No,
wrong. So,
that's not fair. That's not
not
fair.
fair. And I believe in an equal playing field for everybody, So there you go.
Okay, we've got one more question.
Sure.
Let's just bring that one up before we finish off. I tell you why I've got to finish off early. My son Sonny, who's doing the technical support today, wants me to drop him off around his girlfriend. So if everyone's aware, that's why I'm cutting it off early tonight, Sonny. So, is
All
it
about
getting any
priorities.
better? No, absolutely. Is it getting any better for women in the industrial field, or is it still pretty rough in many
It's
companies?
still pretty rough. Here in the United States, we do have equal, equality laws that are set up. I think they have the same thing in the UK. For women, it's getting better. It is getting better because I love seeing women in tech. I believe that if you're hot, pink, purple, plaid, gay, straight, doesn't matter what you are, you know, I'm going to throw you into the fight. Okay, I'm gonna put you in there. I need to see what your skills are. I need to see what you'll be able to do.
It's about
And
the right people, not the type of people, is the way I like to
right,
say it. The problem is, though, isn't it? It's unconscious bias, and unfortunately,
absolutely,
the world we
absolutely,
live in still, no matter how much regulation you change, you've got that unconscious bias, whether we like it or not. And people do
right.
everything they can to change it. But I think, Jess, that's what I see still now, and I think we all need to be mindful of it as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm a firm believer in female equality because I have a daughter, and I believe equal work for equal pay. Somebody that's doing the exact same thing as I'm doing, if not more, should be making the same salary that I'm making, per year. I mean, that's a given. Or
Yeah.
per hour, if they're hourly. If they're a contractor, it's based on the contract, but I'm a firm believer that everybody should be getting paid for their skill level, for what they can do. And,
Yeah.
and they should be learning what they can't do and start, achieving that next level to be able to get there, because first off, with my red team, I am very blunt. I've been called cold blooded and a whole bunch of other verbiage, that's out there, So and some very, nice and unnice acronyms because I'm kind of cold blooded when it comes down to working with my team because we are the attack vector. We do not care. We are the black hats. We come in and, I'm famous for DDoS attacks. We are there to maim, destroy, figure things out. We are not there to apologize, act nice, whatnot. So, as the red teamer, that's kind of the mindset that you have to have is that I'm here to rape and pillage, no different than the Vikings, and steal your intellectual property, your money, your data, or shut down your services, shut down your power, shut down your so, and define those holes. And and there's also a lot of paperwork that's involved with that. You got to be able to write this stuff up as a pen tester. You need to know the King's English, you need to use proper syntax and have writing skills, and so forth. And, sometimes women are better than that than men. Sometimes, I mean, I'm not the best not the best, let's say, speller, or a person that can spell all of these nice phonetical words that are out there. So I'm not the best speech writer on the planet. But, as I tell people, I can at least communicate what it is that I'm trying to do to help you build a better system from what I have found, and I record that with screenshots, and then be able to put that into syntax and put that into something that's readable, in a communications plan that's now given to the client, so they understand what's going on. And, the thing though too is I hope that, we get more women in IT security. I hope we get them everywhere, anywhere, because guess what? We need more people hot pink, purple, plaid, like I said, doesn't matter, into the fight,
Yeah.
and into the learning curve. And the other thing though too is mix it up. Everybody's got different opinions. You are not we are not
Diversity is crucial, I think, in
right. We are
any
not
industry.
infallible creatures by any means, and guess what? Having things from a different perspective and different view are very good in team building, and I'm a firm believer in that.
Thanks, Chip. We're pretty much out of time. We've been on for an hour. It's been absolutely amazing. Can people reach out to you on LinkedIn, or is that going to blow up your inbox?
No, that's fine. They can join me on LinkedIn any way whatsoever. I heavily monitor that. Please don't email me for, or call me because it'll just go into the ether, or it'll go into my voicemail. Because I mean, I get way too many emails a day. I get about 400 to 500 emails a day from vendors and students and everybody, and I can only get to so much. But as I tell people, join my LinkedIn network. Please do follow me. I am a shit poster, so I don't care. I mean, most people don't like that, but I post a lot of stuff that's out there right now.
I think you're on a
Hopefully
friend of mine's. You're on a friend of mine's show soon as well, aren't you? On Jax's Outpost Grey coming up soon.
Yes, I am. I am coming up February the 10th. I will be on her show. Talking about IT and cyber. We talked today about IT and OT cybersecurity, and where it's going, where it needs to be, and what we need to be able to improve our systems, improve our education, improve our hands-on knowledge, improve our vocational education, like we talked about today, and improved our communications between each other and looking at the market. Where does it need to go? Where does it need to be? And our state and our federal government regulations that are there or not there
Yeah.
that need to be implemented.
Absolutely. I'll finish off. I think you might get this on a Columbo moment. And that, can you remember the program Columbo? Or am I going to miss
Oh
this?
yeah.
That's good. So I want to catch you off guard at the end. We had a very successful Cyber Career Day last week. I think across all the streams, we've had thousands of people watch it. And the feedback we've had from people on what they learned from the leaders who attended has been phenomenal. We've got another one on March the 4th. If you've got some time, Chip, it would be awesome to have you on there as a speaker.
I would be elated. I will definitely show up.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Any last words before we go, Chip?
Well, first off, please, as I tell people in this industry, please be kind to each other, learn from each other. This is a great opportunity not only to learn from cyber, from IT and OT, but the other thing though too is I tell people the one key thing that you have to learn is to read. Please do read your white papers. Please do read your blogs. Please do read your all the different things that are out there in IT and cyber. There's great books. And you've got so much knowledge that's out there. Find what it is that you want to do, you love to do, pursue it with everything that you've got, and we will all be here to cheer you on. And the ones
Amazing.
that don't are the ones that you do not need to listen to, because as I tell people, especially that work with me, I'm part of the 1%, because guess what? The other 99 wouldn't do it, but I will.
That's awesome. Chip, thank you so much. I just want to finish off by saying, if you enjoy our content, please do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It will help us monetize the community in the long run, which will mean that we can continue being free for all the members and hopefully drive you some more value. I'm going to finish off with a little clip, as I do every week, of what our members think about the community. From me, Simon, thank you so much for tuning in. Chip, it's been an honor and an absolute privilege having you on the show. Can't wait to see you at Cyber Career Day. Everyone, see you later.
Thank you so very much. Have a wonderful.
And it's been so great to be part of this awesome community where you can learn, get potential jobs, and this is the part that the community has helped me the most, being able to get a great contract in security, and thanks for this.
You don't have to be super experienced in order to contribute. They really foster a sense of community, and they encourage everybody to contribute anything that they can, regardless of whether you're just starting out in your career or if you've been in the career for decades. I like the different challenges that they have, the different pathways that you can follow, the fact that you can join communities that are specific to you and your needs. It's a new and growing and thriving group, and I'm really proud that I was able to be a part of it from almost the very beginning.
It's given me a community I could lean on, and the people in there are always willing to help. I've also gotten to break into cybersecurity because of InfoSec Live, and I'm very grateful for that.
Cybersecurity professional or are trying to become one, you need to get onto InfoSec Live.
Whether are you brand new to the field, whether you are pivoting from another IT career or you are pivoting from a non-IT career, this is the place for you to. Also, even if you are an experienced professional, there will be something here that you can learn.
InfoSec Live has been great for me because it's brought me closer to other like-minded people, and I've been able to pick the brains of some real industry experts that are also part of the community.
To the right place, because listen, let me tell you that InfoSec.live is everything that it claims to be. A vibrant community. They've got all that you need on InfoSec.live. Listen, they tell you InfoSec.live is addictive. Get on board. Come and get addicted.
Get on InfoSec now.